Yo.
Hey guys.
So happy to see you. It's
How
your show.
are
This is
you?
your show.
Yes,
Or my show?
yes.
Our show.
It's my show, but you're always invited. Welcome to the Rich Couch. My name is Deborah Richelieu, and I am accompanied by my amazing husband, Kevin Richelieu, aka Ref Kev. So welcome, guys. We're going to be talking about PCOS and your marriage. So welcome. Stay tuned. It's going to be really great. So lean into this conversation. Share it with a friend. Share it with somebody else. You know, maybe it's another couple, a PCOS wife, sister, cousin, whomever. Share it out. And thank you guys for joining us for a rich conversation.
Let's get started.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on the Rich Couch. Listen, I'm seeing some of the friends come in. Thank you guys for crossing over from Instagram over to YouTube. Sometimes I start the live on Instagram. Typically, that's what I do. But today we wanted to jump over to my YouTube channel here on the Rich Couch. So if you are new to the Rich Couch YouTube channel, my name is Deborah. This is my husband,
Yep,
Kevin. And we're all about having rich conversations. We're all about having rich conversations and enriching your life. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. So shout out to some of my therapist friends. I see you guys on here. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you also share this maybe with another therapist friend. But today we're specifically talking about PCOS. We're talking about the human behind the therapist. So my name is Deborah, and I have something that is called PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome.
And to jump in, you may have saw a little snippet. We're going to show you something special at the end that you don't want to miss out, something that's coming really, really soon. So you're going to stay tuned all the way through the end, because that little clip you just saw, it was just a teaser, but we're going to show you at the end of this whole thing as we talk about this whole entire journey of PCOS and marriage. So don't give them too much.
We're not going to give you too much, because you got to stay to the end, my friend. But we have something very special. We got a very special announcement at the end that we want to share with anyone who's joined on the live today. So if you know anybody else who wants to join, you got to tell them, get on this live, the YouTube, the Rich Couch YouTube channel. So thank you guys so much for joining with us. So I've been posting a lot this week, and just to kind of give you a background, I've been posting a lot this week as it is my birthday eve.
Happy birthday.
It's my birthday
Wait.
It's my birthday eve tomorrow. February 24th is my 35th birthday. And going into, birthday. Going into my birthday week, I was just thinking about my birthday is a great time of reflection. I think everyone, right? All of us have some type of level of reflection as we approach another year. Another year we get to wake up, we get to be grateful and thank God to be able to see it, right? Because everybody, we know friends and family who were not able to make it to live to see another birthday. So I'm always grateful to be on the wake up list, period, but especially on my birthday. So as my birthday was approaching, and I know a lot of people sometimes get a little, sad or morbid when they're turning like another year older, but I really try to make it a time of reflection. And as a 35-year-old married woman, I started thinking about this journey of PCOS. And I remember when I was first diagnosed back in 2017. So, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, back in 2017, I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it's a little funny. I use humor a lot. Okay. So I will always find a way to be like, well, this is kind of funny. Because when we first got married, we got married at 23 years old. And we're like, okay, we're going to be on a 5-year plan. 5-year plan, no babies.
Telling God our plans.
What'd you say?
Telling God our plans.
Yeah, we were telling God our plans. And clearly, the plan was so different than what we had expected and planned for. So we're thinking we're in control of the situation, but God was clearly in control and he knew what was going on. So when we're ready to start talking about family planning and what would it look like to have Richie Lou babies, here comes this situation of polycystic ovarian syndrome. But I do want to share with you guys, there is hope through the journey. And if this is your first time learning about it for yourself and you're married, I want to talk about how to just some things that have been helpful on my journey. Some gems, some rich gems. That's what we'll call them, rich gems that have been helpful on the journey, especially when you're first finding out about your PCOS or your diagnosis. So let's jump in to some things I just wanted to share with you all. I have my notes here, so please, give me a second to get my notes together. Okay, so when it comes to PCOS, you guys type PCOS in the chat. Type PCOS in the chat, since that's the topic for today. PCOS and how it impacts your marriage. First and foremost, I think it's really important to tell your spouse. Once you get diagnosed, tell your spouse. And it may sound very basic or elementary, but it's so easy to hold on to information and make it your own rather than sharing it with your spouse. And as my background, some of you may know, some of you may not know, I work with couples professionally as a licensed marriage and couples family therapist. So I really encourage couples to make sure you have a no secrets policy. No secrets policy. So whether he finds out he has a diagnosis or I find out I have a diagnosis, it's important that we openly communicate and share so that we can not let this be like this hidden secret in the background of our marriage. And sorry, y'all, my earring just fell.
Didn't have. Don't mean you need a new one. That's right. You just gotta put it.
Right. Go shopping. No, actually, I do need to go shopping for an earring back.
Birthday doesn't mean more spending. It just means celebration of life. So it don't mean we need new earrings.
No. So, I definitely need new earrings.
No.
But I'm gonna put it there so it don't distract me. Okay, number 2, PCOS and how it impacts your marriage. So once you tell your spouse, make sure you're open to discussing the emotional impact of your polycystic ovarian syndrome. So, Kevin, do you remember the first time I started to kind of open up about the emotional impact? Do you remember that?
Yeah, honestly, when she first was talking about this whole diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it was. I've never heard of it at all.
Right.
I can't say I was aware of what specifically was the impact.
Right.
Honestly. So I would probably say the impact became more apparent the more that we were actually thinking now we wanted to try to have children.
Right.
So
Right.
as Deborah said, we thought we were the ones planning. So I didn't really quite see the impact until I think when we started trying to think we could plan and
Mm-hmm.
seeing it not go according to our plan. That's when I think I started seeing the impact emotionally.
Yeah. And I would say so too, because when I first learned about the diagnosis, it was kind of like, we weren't really informed about the impact of PCOS on couples, to be honest. And we were in our late 20s, maybe, yeah, mid to late 20s. So we are just like, people get married and have babies all the time. How hard can it be, right? Jokes on you. Um, and then also, if I could be honest, I wasn't very not that I wasn't straightforward. It's just like I heard about my diagnosis. I was on my lunch break, by the way. I strongly discouraged. I was on my lunch break, so I really didn't give myself time to really digest the information. I was given a folder, lots of information, and then I just went on to the next, just went back to work. I don't even remember if I told him the same day. This is why I encourage couples, be open, don't hold any secrets. And not that it was like intentional to be held as a secret, but I just was like, oh, the doctor said this, but kind of threw it in the back of my mind, not really something important. So I say that to say discussing it with your partner helps you to discuss the emotional impact and giving yourself some time to really process what does this mean for us as a couple, which leads to my next point. When you're able to discuss the emotional impact, now you're in a position to ask your spouse for the support that you actually need. The support that you actually need. So everybody needs support. I don't care who you are. Everybody needs support, right? Some way, somehow, you need some level of support. So asking your partner to be supportful in a way that is meaningful to you. So maybe that's going to the gym. Maybe that is hey, I need to distract myself. I need a positive distraction. So can we go on a date night or can we go on a date day? Just to give myself a positive distraction. Or um, finding something positive that we can do together, right? We've had several home projects that we've done together. So whether it's, our bathroom, living room, stuff like that, finding a positive distraction that we can do together. And then, of course, praying together about the diagnosis, right? Praying together and finding a way to spiritually connect our faith on the issue. And that could be with any issue that you face as a couple. Okay, my next point, PCOS and your marriage. PCOS and your marriage. So I talked about asking your spouse for support in a way that's meaningful to you. One thing that I learned in the journey later on, I realized how valuable it was. Excuse me. And again, someone may listen to this and they're like, well, that's kind of basic or obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me. So I'm hoping to share with you and it could be helpful. One thing that was really helpful was inviting my spouse to my doctor's appointments. You remember when I started doing that?
Yeah, but I don't think I went, right? At first?
Well, I didn't invite you.
Right. So isn't that funny, right? So isn't that funny in marriage? So she got this diagnosis, and it was completely a disruption and something that just was completely unplanned. And so, and I'm not throwing shade. You need my support over here from the realm, the world, the streaming world. She started beginning to hold it against me. And I didn't even know how she was expecting for me to support.
Right.
If you haven't learned this already, as husbands, not every husband, but we don't always know how to respond or show that support that's needed and necessary. So I almost felt like there probably was even some moments where maybe there was some tension, but it was like unspoken, not knowing that it's like falling short. We don't know how you fell short, kind of.
Yeah.
So I think that is good what you said, that like when you actually invited me, it kind of helped me to know as an expectation how to be there.
Yeah.
And even if I don't know exactly how to be there emotionally, like how do I even maybe be there physically? But it did help. I think it was a game changer when you actually invited me to be a part. And I think that's a good gem, what you're talking about, just the importance of giving those closest to your spouse, your spouse or those closest to you, I should say, an opportunity to be invited into the thing that you're walking through.
Yeah.
So that you're not going through alone, and also being mad that they're not leaning in like you would hope that they would want, that you would want them to.
Yeah, no, it was a later on reflection, right? With time and growth, you realize, wait a minute, I was becoming very resentful silently too. Ladies, I know we do it because I've been guilty of it myself. And so we have to catch ourselves, right? That now I'm becoming resentful. Now I'm becoming like, he don't even come with me to none of my doctor's appointments. And then you're like, wait a minute, but I've never invited you into my process and my journey. And again, I don't laugh to make light of it. It's just kind of like a laugh at myself that I would hold this man and be resentful. And then eventually this can grow into bitterness and all this stuff. And then later on, I realized, wait a minute, I should invite him to my appointments. And you know what? I think now that I think back to when you even had some health challenges, and I don't know if the light bulb clicked for the both of us. He would come back from a doctor's appointment. He's like, you don't want to know what happened? And I'm like, oh, was I supposed to ask? But you invited me into the process. So it's important through sickness and in health, you invite each other through the process. Okay. So I talked about that, inviting your partner in the process. Another thing that's going to be really, really important, some practical things to be aware of. And I shared this early on Instagram this week, and I'll share it here again. Some of the symptoms of PCOS. So some of the symptoms of PCOS, and some of you may be familiar. So some of the symptoms are mood swings, right? Mood swings. You okay? You want some water?
Yeah. I brought this time. I brought the water.
Yes.
Just so I was prepared this time, right?
Mood swings. Mood swings is one of the symptoms of PCOS. And one moment you can be fine, smooth sailing, and then the next moment you popping off. You're losing, all that patience that you had, or maybe it's a build-up of the resentment and the anger and different emotions. So mood swings is one of the symptoms, right? Also, another symptom is fatigue. So fatigue may be a sign that you're low in vitamin D and B12. So, your spouse may see you and I always need a nap. I don't know about you guys, but I always need a nap. But then I realize, I'm deficient in certain vitamins. So that's why I'm always tired and I have zero energy, or it feels like I have zero energy. So that could be helpful too, because your spouse may feel like, wait, what's going on? Like you're not peppy, you're not as alert as you used to be. Another symptom is an increase of androgen hormones. This hormone, I save the best for last. And there's other symptoms, but androgen hormones is like the male hormone, right? So that is the hormone that, or it's like, it acts like testosterone. If I'm wrong, please correct me. It almost acts like an increase of testosterone, but in a woman's body. So what does that look like? We have an increase of hair, facial hair all over our chin, neck, got a little mustache going on. And I know some ladies have mustaches, but this is some people, they can get a wax removal or tweeze, but girlies with PCOS, that thing is aggressive. Like I used to, get my little facial waxes, and you're thinking the hair is gone and it's gone forever. No. PCOS facial hair is like really intense, and it grows all over your body in places where you probably don't want it to grow, especially as a woman, such as your chest, your stomach, legs, arms. And again, I remember I told you guys always find a way to laugh because if you don't laugh, if you can't laugh at yourself, um, I don't know what you can laugh at. But I was talking to my OB about my PCOS, and she goes, your PCOS is aggressive. And I was like, ain't she? She is so aggressive. So, again, so why do I bring this up? Some of these symptoms, like the excessive hair, it also causes excessive weight, specifically around the belly area. And for some women I know who I've spoken to, they don't have the excessive weight, but they can relate to the excessive hair. And so I bring up that symptom because honestly, it can be a shock to your confidence. And if we're honest, what woman, what wife doesn't want to be attractive to her husband, And PCOS, it's like your husband didn't, and be aware of how I say this. Your husband doesn't sign up for it, right? Like when we first got married, I did not have all this facial hair, to be honest with you. And you could be like, well, I don't see what you're talking about, Deb. We're on camera, first of all. I wear full coverage foundation, shout out to Juvia's Place, all the time. And if I'm on social, I might use filters and so forth. But I feel like I've grown. I've done a lot of individual work to become this confident person. And so when I started to experience all these symptoms, my face, my body, clothes not fitting, I was just really, really, it really just impacted my confidence, right? Mm-hmm. And, part of that confidence helps a woman to feel attractive and sexy and, and so some women report a low decrease in their sex drive as part of a symptom with PCOS. For me, it was more so like I just didn't feel attractive. I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel, like an attractive person.
Can I jump in on there?
Yes, please.
Because listen, I'm telling y'all, there's something at the end that she's gonna be sharing, that we're gonna be sharing, that you don't want to miss. But I want to talk about that for a second. And the whole purpose of this whole thing, right? We want to have rich conversations, rich relationships, enrich people's lives. So part of that enriching has to do with transparency, debunking, confronting common myths, cultural misconceptions. So I just want to kind of park on something that I feel someone might need to hear. One of the things I think as men that we have to come to, how do I describe this? Confess to and even unsubscribe from.
Unsubscribe. Can we type in unsubscribe? Unsubscribe in the chat.
As men,
it's gonna be good.
We have to unsubscribe from culture's definitions of beauty.
Yeah.
And culture's definitions of just what is attractive.
What does that look like though for a man?
Yeah, because on TV, how the woman's shaped. Let me put it this way. I think we've been conditioned to have our attractions be predominantly sexualized. Mm-hmm. Now I do know that like sexuality is of God and God uses that, and that's something that God allows for us to partake in as a gift,
right,
to enjoy on earth in the context of marriage.
Right.
So what I mean by that is sometimes as men, if we're not careful, we only know how to be drawn to things that the only way we can connect to things is by it being sexualized. So true. I think that's what happens for women sometimes, and you're speaking on this, which I feel like is very raw, Deb, is that part of what can make a woman, you're saying, I'm not speaking for women, that feels less attractive, those words, is because perhaps of what culture would define as attractive. Or what culture would define as pretty or what's acceptable for a woman. So when you have a lot of these unspoken things or spoken things or sexualized things or advertisements and TV and movie, right. Now we bring that into marriage, and it's hard to actually develop a personal, specific, contextual relationship outside of the expectations of culture, right, and the definitions of culture. We all gonna get old one day. Our bodies are gonna change. Our face, we're going to change. Our skin is going to change. All these things about us are going to change. And if we are putting our marital vows and our commitments and relationships specifically for how we are physically looking,
Right.
for how we are physically trying to accommodate each other according to these superficial terms. Now, granted, I'm not saying it's wrong to be attracted to someone. I just think sometimes
Right.
we have to challenge those definitions so that through the different seasons of life, because that's what people don't always talk about, the different seasons of life that could be unplanned and unprecedented, that we in our vows can still be true to those things and
Right.
not feel as though now that it's changed according to the terms and definitions that we secretly and silently and culturally agreed to. Now we don't know how to be present in the marriage and develop and a strong and rich marriage. A strong and rich marriage can be developed in any diagnosis, in any season, in any challenge, in any sickness. That's why we say in sickness and in health and everything. If you are going to be married, you're saying yes through the whole entire journey.
Right.
And if
The
we're only
whole
committing
journey.
ourselves to the comfortable and um, more preferential aspects of the journey, then that distance occurs. And what's becoming a distance is because you're actually having to make a choice. Hold to what you have subscribed to in culture that makes your marriage healthy and thriving, or actually let those things go and build something that's lasting beyond just the physical appearance.
Right. I love that. I think that's really good. That is the purpose of what you're saying, like unsubscribing, right? Unsubscribing because if if a husband goes into marriage thinking, well, she looked this way, but because of a diagnosis, like you look so I know I look physically different, from when we first got married, and you say, you know what, no, I'm not doing that, then now this becomes a point of disconnection. And I share that a lot with couples that I'm working with. Listen, conflict, changes, seasons, changing can be a point of connection, or it can be a point of disconnection depending on how you approach the situation.
And I said something we were at people have heard me say this. We were at a conference. I think the key is this. The reason why I think it's important from the husband's perspective, not speaking for wives, to be patient when your spouse is having different transitions or diagnoses is because you will need them at some point too.
That's true.
So
That's true.
all the men that turn 70, 80, 90, and when things are not working
Yeah.
the same
Even
in that
after,
era,
in your 40s and
40
your
and
30s,
50s,
things
when the
start to
hormones are
change.
changing,
Yeah,
and
you're not the same person you were when
things
you were
are
20.
evolving. You're gonna need your spouse to be a little patient for you in
Yeah,
those seasons as
that's
well.
true.
So I think that if we get the privilege of, and I know it's not easy, so I'm not trying to make an appeal like things are supposed to be easy, but I think the real that comes through the journeys of struggles invites us to have the ability to be the first to extend the grace and mercy that and the patience that we too will need.
Right. Yep. That's so good. That's good. See, this is why we're all about rich conversations. All about rich conversations. And I love having my husband be a part because PCOS really did impact our marriage in ways that we couldn't plan for, we couldn't have prepared for. And so this is why I'm so passionate about sharing my story. And a lot of times it may feel like, man, this is really personal. I've had people reach out to me in my DMs or text me. Thank you so much for sharing this for women and for couples, because it gets really personal and it gets really lonely and isolating, because you might be thinking, oh my gosh, is it just the two of us that's dealing with this? Is anybody else dealing with this? Can anyone else relate? Yes, yes, there are couples who can relate, and you can still have a healthy marriage, and you still can be emotionally connected through it all. So I just want to encourage you guys, or encourage, whether you're watching or whether you're going to be rewatching this, or you have a family or friend dealing with PCOS and they're newly married, or maybe they've had a child too. I've had friends who've had a child, and they're struggling for their second due to their PCOS, and it does impact the marriage. So one big takeaway I would say is, remember, make sure this is a point where we can connect rather than disconnect, right? So that means supporting one another, supporting the marriage, supporting the relationship, and remaining true to those vows that you made, at the altar. So let's keep it going. Hopefully, this is helpful. If this is helpful, drop a thumbs up in the chat if this is helpful, whether it's for you or it's for a friend and you want to enrich someone else's life. So drop a thumbs up in the chat if this is helpful. And I have one more thing before we end, just to remind you guys. Sorry, I'm looking down at my notes in Canva. Okay, so when it comes to PCOS in your marriage, remember, you need to be supporting one another, connecting, praying, and then when you find out this information, you want to share it, you want to communicate, you want to be open. It's not a secret. Because when you open up and you share this with your spouse, you have an opportunity to prepare and plan. Prepare and plan. What does this mean? Because after hearing the devastation of the news in a doctor's office, and maybe you were by yourself, like I was by myself. I didn't have anybody with me. I was by myself. I went on my lunch break. Now I know not to go to certain appointments by myself because you need that emotional support. So after you've learned the devastation, after you've gone through that emotional roller coaster, and you communicated with your spouse, you talked about it. Now it is time to think about, how can I empower myself? One of the most empowering parts of this journey was learning to become my own health advocate. Learning to become my own health advocate was so empowering for me because I started to learn not every doctor, not every doctor is a physician who has that bedside manner that is going to listen to you and really address your needs, address your concerns, answer your questions with compassion and with an educational approach. So, for if you are watching this and it's your first time finding out about PCOS, and you have a physician, you have a doctor, yes, they're an expert in their area, but they're not an expert at listening to you. It is okay. I need you to know it is okay to get a second opinion. And what I mean by that is there are so many doctors who are specialists in their field of study, such as fertility, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids. There are specialists out there. It's not just that one doctor that you went to and you didn't have a good experience. I've had different doctors that I would go to, and I've learned to advocate for myself. At first, I didn't know how important it was to advocate for myself. I really didn't. You told me to take this medication, I took it. I didn't question it. I didn't think anything. I didn't know to question it. So it's really important that you are in a position where you're with a physician um, who will answer your questions, show you the research. You know, if there is, this is why it's important to talk about planning and preparing. So, for example, if your physician, you come to them and you share with them you have PCOS, and you know you and your husband are ready to have a baby and start planning and preparing for that, and that physician says, okay, well, the answer is we're going to start doing IVF trials. Not that there's anything wrong with IVF. There are people who are very successful with IVF. But if you're not comfortable with that being your first and only intervention, it's important to share that with your physician. And it's equally important for them to partner with you and sharing with you other options so that you and your spouse and your family can prepare, plan and prepare. So planning and preparing also looks like um, getting a really great healthcare and medical team on your side. So that's your OBGYN, an endocrinologist, a nutritionist, a therapist, girlies, PCOS girlies, from one therapist to another, because I see some therapist friends on here. It's important for, like I said, the human behind the therapist to go to therapy. And then we got a chance to plan and prepare, right? We talked about putting it in our budget. And my therapist was extremely helpful to my journey. So I've had a therapist, an OB. I work with a specialist. So you have to have a whole team of support on top of, you know, your spouse being your support system as well. Anything you want to add to that?
I think that's really good. I mean, I think that the importance of being open to, you talked about those other options, right? So I know that those options sometimes, especially as Christians, they're hard to maneuver through. I believe that could be a whole other episode.
It probably
Like
can be.
the how to navigate through determining fertility options as a Christian. Like, should Christians do IVF? Should Christians do what's the other?
That's true.
Is it IUI? Is it the other
It's
one?
IUI, IVF.
Like,
there's medication,
right,
hormonal
should
treatment.
Christians do any medication? Like,
That's
that
true.
would be a great live
What
conversation.
I'm curious. I would like to know, what do you guys think?
Would y'all think that? Do you think that would be a good conversation? Like, how
Yes.
to, like, should, like, the thoughts, like, Christians processing how to navigate through IVF, IUIs, and other kinds of fertility options.
Yeah.
Right. Put that, if you think that would be a
Let
good
us
topic, put it in the
know
comments,
if
because
that
I think
is-
that could be, because it's tough when you are in
Yeah.
a situation and having a diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
There's like, does God use science? Is it all just faith? Does faith also have works? Does the Bible say? How does that
That's
pan
a
out in
good
this?
point.
So when you were talking, when you asked, well, what comes to mind, I think those are, or any thoughts, those were kind of what comes to mind. I feel like probably one of the things that was interesting about this journey, which I can't wait till we show what we're about to show in a second. I can't wait. But part of the things that makes it a little challenging and difficult sometimes is, as a man, humbling yourself to be willing to take necessary tests.
Yep.
So I think that would be up to, Rose said it would be taking necessary tests. So like when Deborah's like, oh, you should go get this test, I'm like, man, I don't want to get that tested, or you should get this tested,
yes.
right?
It
So-
tests your marriage because you're like, the doctor said.
Yeah, I'm like, my doctor is Jesus, the great physician. I don't need no doctor telling me to do nothing in no cup. But,
I'm like, you better go to this appointment.
yeah, the genetic testing, I'm like, come on, man. I'm covered by the blood of Jesus. Listen, no generational curses. My genetics is Jesus. So when you could be all spiritual and you don't want to do anything, right? But I think that's kind of what comes to mind. Like, it is an interesting journey trying to get through the thoughts of which options that we can both be in agreement with, or couples could be in agreement with, that can be presented, that they feel comfortable exploring and committing to.
Yes.
Because it's not always easy when you get those different, diagnoses. Shout out to Ruth Joseph's in the building.
Hey
The
guys,
back
what's
Pocket
up?
Creative is up in here. Tiffany, of course. Ruth was up here earlier. I think I saw Lynn.
Yeah.
Shout out to those of you going to rewatch this later.
Thank you guys
Special
for
shout out
joining.
those of you who are live right now, because you're about to get this. Yo, I'm telling you, you do not want to miss what we're about to be dropping soon.
Yes, we got something really special
You
for
do
y'all.
not want to miss this thing. But before we do y'all have any questions? If you do, throw in the comments, and we're going to keep this thing going, because I think people are not getting off of work. It's Friday, and weekend is getting started, and we're talking about PCOS and marriage. I'll tell you another thing. I became very informed. I became very informed. Like, I never really understood the whole process of fertility journeys. Like, I seriously, like, it's so funny because, not funny, but it's so interesting how some people in their journeys, when you don't have a diagnosis or don't have a particular challenge, you might not even recognize certain details, because it might just work out. Now, this is the cool thing too. I think it makes you more. I know you got something to say.
No,
too,
yeah,
right?
I was gonna say.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna jump in here. I really appreciated when I finally invited you into the journey, and like we would sit down and watch videos together. He was going to appointments with me, and it was a point for us to connect. Like, cause I was like, "Oh, you gonna watch this video?" And he's like, all right, let's watch it.
And then, don't let me put my head down and look at my phone during these videos. She's like, what? You're not going to watch it? What are you doing? I'm like, I just was looking down real fast. Anyway, but
But
those
no, I appreciate
those
that.
petty marriage jabs. But
Our little jabs. But no, that I did appreciate when you did join me in understanding the research and
right,
understanding the process of all these different modalities.
right, and I think the reason I was sharing that was it makes you just more thankful and appreciative of just like these overlooked daily miracles. Meaning, man, when somebody gets pregnant, just the science and God just working out their HCG levels and just getting level, just they don't even need to
It's
look and
so
know, and it just
true.
works.
Yeah, like
You know,
it
it's
really
like,
it opened our eyes. We're like, man, like to have a successful 9-month pregnancy is like a miracle. Like it
and
really is a
you
miracle.
know what's crazy too
It's
is
amazing.
like it makes you even more intentional with your prayers for other people
Yes.
and their
Yes.
diagnoses.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
It's
and
true.
if they don't have a diagnosis, because sometimes there's a misconception that if you have a particular diagnosis, you can't really encourage other people. But in many ways, you have especially when you humble yourself, you have an opportunity to get past yourself and to serve someone with something
Absolutely.
that perhaps you can relate to. So my
Yeah,
point though is
that's
that like,
true.
listen, when we pray for people that with their journeys, with their fertility journeys, with their
Yeah.
diagnoses, like we really do pray and believe for them,
Yeah.
and um, we really want to be full of faith in the process. Which is probably
Yeah.
Tiffany's saying it's a miracle how babies get here from conception to birth. Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Like, how did God do that? Now that's a whole like I know there's so many views of like if there's not, but how like that is so amazing.
It's crazy.
And the crazy thing
It's
for
crazy.
me is like this is an actual person who God has in
Yes.
mind to bring into this earth
Egg,
to
sperm
do something amazing for him.
becomes a human. We're like, wow.
Like it's so amazing. Like when we
It's
see
amazing.
when we see babies, it's like, yo, do you like who are you going to become?
Yeah, yeah.
And like what a amazing discovery that we'll have when we see who this person is gonna be.
It's incredible.
Here we go, and have some Christian couples who used other methods. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's a
that
good
would be
one.
great
That's a good point.
yeah, we know definitely some people who've used other methods,
Yep.
and it's worked out for them to keep their legacy going. It's the whole
Yeah.
question: is it the legacy? Is it we surrogate mothers?
Yeah.
We know of those.
Yeah.
So that actually would be really good. Shout out to Chad. I see you. That's so
Hey,
good.
Chad, we
But
got a guy. We got a man on
if
here.
y'all know anyone who would like to jump on and share their story, let us
Yeah.
know as well. We'd love to have you because we can easily pull you into this thing,
Oh,
and we
yeah.
can all be talking about
that'd be great.
our journeys and different things you have going on in your life together
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's the thing. Like, there's just these moments that we get to have through life's difficulties that still keep us humble, compassionate, and another word is empathetic.
Yeah.
Empathetic towards other people with the way that we serve
It's
and
true.
love them,
It's true.
and be supportive
Yeah.
for other people. But I know some of y'all just jumped in. I'm gonna say it one more time. We got this surprise that we have for you. You do not want to get off of this
Stay
thing because there's a surprise we're gonna drop for y'all in a second here.
Announcement.
You are not gonna want to miss this thing, and I'm telling you, this thing is crazy. Crazy. It had me up late yesterday, just kind of just getting this thing prepared.
Shout out to my husband, y'all. He is the cameraman, the editing.
Not editing. I can't
not
take credit
editing,
for that. I can't take credit for that.
You helped me edit like my reels and stuff. Like,
Yeah,
edit my reels.
Yeah.
You're the creative team. You're the lighting team.
I've been telling you, if y'all didn't find
sound
see that
and
video
volume.
on Instagram when I was giving her the consulting view, I'm telling you, it's working. Deb's IG is popping.
Social media consultant.
Deb's IG is popping, y'all. If you go to her IG right now, Richly Deb, it's the Richly Deb, right? It's popping right now. I'm telling you, man. Listen, don't just only listen to people that got 1 million followers. Some of the people you can listen to is the ones who have less followers because of all the things that they learned the hard way, and that's myself. Learn things the hard way. So creative director, whatever you need me to be.
Yes, I appreciate you, sir. Good sir, I appreciate you.
Any questions y'all have in the comments, throw it there, and we will answer it. We'll put it up on the screen so that we could kind of be able to ask this thing out loud. I know there's like a second here before you actually hear us. It's like probably at this point you heard the last thing we just said, and that's just how it is around internet. All right, he said
yes. Listen,
if you have questions, let us know. We'll keep this thing going a little while longer because we do want to hear from you, and I think it could be something that we can that can help other people. Any questions you have for us that we could, she says, teach Kev. Any question you have for us that we could answer while we wait on this moment. While we wait for that, I think Deborah, let me ask you a question because
Yeah.
I always have questions for you. So let me ask you this: why all of a sudden this week you chose to pivot toward sharing your PCS journey, PCOS journey? Why'd you pivot to that this week? And like, I mean, you've been doing date nights and you know helping couples and marriages. Like, why you went straight towards PCOS in this particular week? Why did you shift and pivot towards that?
That's a good question. I think I shifted. No, no, I think I knew I shifted. Um, in January, in January, we went through a process of praying and fasting with our church for 21 days. And I just was thinking about my impact and what I really want to focus on. What I really want to focus on in the year 2024. And God just made it really clear about sharing my own story and what He has done. I shared today actually in a reel that women with PCOS are um, they have a very high they're at high risk for depression and anxiety. And I know we joked a lot, probably a lot earlier, but uh, on a serious note, um, finding out about a diagnosis like PCOS can really get you into a dark place. And I know because I know from experience. And so you can also experience all types of anxious thoughts and intrusive thoughts about what's going to happen in the future when it comes to your family planning. You can have anxious thoughts about what's working, what's not working, with different medications and interventions, and you can just really sink into a really dark place, which I would describe as depression. So as I was coming up to my birthday, I was thinking about just the grace of God and getting through some really, really dark moments um, over the past couple of years. And I just thought about any young woman who could identify with that pain because it is painful. Um, and I just wanted to speak to her. I just wanted to speak to her. And so, if that is you, if that is you and you are feeling hopeless and helpless and scared and anxious, like there's hope. There's so much hope. And you're going to get through this. I promise you, you're going to get through this. So, yeah, I just was thinking about that. I was thinking about how hard how hard it was, in the beginning. And I'm crying not because I'm crying. Sorry, y'all. I don't even cry like this. I'm not a crier. My husband knows. Um, I'm crying because man, those days are dark. Some of those days are really dark, and I just want you to know, like, you're gonna get through it. You are gonna get through it. There's hope. There's help. There's support. There's people who love you and they see you, and I'm one of those people. Like if no one else loves you, no one else sees you. I see you and I love you because it's from a real genuine place. And you have to let people know there's hope. One of the greatest takeaways in all of my clinical training um, and becoming a therapist was making sure your client has hope at the end, of each session, making sure they feel a little bit more hopeful, after they sat with you for that session. And that's really important to me. There's a lot of clinical information, there's research and all these great things and interventions that can help people. But, the most important thing is you can give your client is hope. So I wanted to give hope. I wanted to spread a little hope and spread some joy and encouragement to women with PCOS and women who have been praying and trusting and doubting and who've been anxious and who've been in a really dark place. So that's why I really wanted to do this. I think as you get older and older, it's important to share your story and share like how you are still standing. And I don't think we do that enough. People just see us like all bright and shiny and beautiful and successful, and they see degrees or accolades. They see, thank God, a healthy marriage, and they don't think about like the journey to get there because it's not overnight. So that's when, yeah, that's why I made the pivot.
I
So
think that's good. I think what you're saying, which is very powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Is it's so funny how sometimes the things that we feel we're supposed to be hiding,
yeah,
I don't want to say hiding, but just maybe keeping
keeping to ourselves.
to ourselves,
Yeah,
could be the thing that God wants to use to touch people. Now, granted, there are things that are personal, and we do live in a culture where everything is public, and I don't believe in that.
right.
That everything is supposed to be public, because when there is no
Definitely.
kind of privacy, there's
Yeah.
no kind of intimacy. There's no
Sacredness.
sacred. Yeah, you
Yeah.
lose the sense of being of sacredness when everything is public. So I don't think everything's
Yeah.
supposed to be public. So don't get me wrong. At the same time, there's a lot of things that we could be holding on to, thinking and waiting until there is a perfect resolve before we
Yeah.
share.
Mm-hmm.
And God desires often to minister through the weakness.
Yep.
Right? So when Paul says his grace is sufficient for us in weakness, when I'm weak, then I'm strong. There is something about the grace of God being released through you as you are fully depending on him.
Absolutely.
Through some of the most challenging situations, that I think what you're saying, which is so rich, it is time, maybe for many of you, to be sharing specific things that you could have been holding on to.
Yeah.
That thing that could literally set someone free, and even yourself free.
Yeah.
You're holding on to for whatever the reason is, because maybe the pressure of feeling like it has to be completely perfectly resolved in order for you to share is holding you back, when there really is breakthrough in testifying, because that's what the testimony is. Because often, man, I'm not trying to preach, because I know this thing is not it's not a preaching YouTube channel. No, but like okay. We have,
but it makes the conversation richer.
Y'all, listen, if I could just go off for a second here. I think that we have glamorized the definition of testimony. We have glamorized.
Oh, you better speak on
the definition.
You better speak
of
on
testimony.
that.
And I'm about to go off. I'm trying to hold it a little bit.
I
won't go too long on this, but I just
it.
have to share this really fast, y'all. Okay.
That is so good.
So in the Old Testament, there's times where it says Ark of Covenant and Ark of Testimony, right? I'm not trying to get all deep, but it's just I can't help it. And whenever I look at the fact that in the Old Testament sometimes says Ark of Covenant, sometimes says Ark of Testimony, it drew me to something. So it makes me recognize, because we know the Ark in the Old Testament is symbolic of God's presence dwelling among his people. So as God's presence is dwelling among his people, the greatest testimony they can have is being completely devoted to him. That's the greatest testimony that we all can have. When we think about God's love and his redemptive work for us personally, the greatest testimony that we can have, more than getting a new house, more than getting a new car, more than getting all of our prayers answered, is the testimony of becoming like Jesus, knowing him personally and transforming to become more like him, like I said just a second ago. Our greatest witness and testimony is our devotion to Jesus.
Right.
So when Romans 8 says, nothing can separate us from the love of God, that's what makes us more than conquerors. What Paul is saying in Romans 8 is that as long as we know that God loves us, as long as we know that God has redeemed us, no matter what life throws our way, our testimony is always firmly planted and established in that truth. Why that's powerful is because sometimes we're waiting, thinking that our testimonies is dependent upon individual circumstances turning around. That's contrary to cultural and popular belief, when it is that people say it's going to turn around for our favor, listen, sometimes the turnaround in the situation is not the situation getting better, but your perspective getting better. Right. So you're saying it's going to turn around in my favor, and God is saying, I need you to turn around in your thinking. I need you to turn around in your perspective. I need you to turn around in the way that you see and process things, because you're waiting for everything externally to change, and you haven't. And here's the thing: when God changes things externally for us,
listen, this has to do. I promise y'all, this is on topic. So
hold on. only changes things externally and doesn't change things internally.
Yeah.
He's nothing better than a genie, nothing better than some type of black magic things that we see in the world. But the God that we serve doesn't just turn things around on the outside of us, but he actually turns things around on the inside of us. So what's the point that I'm saying? Your testimony has to be shared. And this Ark of Covenant, Ark of Testimony. What is it that God is doing in your life that's continuing to testify to who Jesus is? So even in your pain, how is Jesus being glorified in that? So Lord, while we wait for children, the work that you're doing in us is worthy of testifying about your goodness. Yeah. So I just think that why what you're saying is so rich, Deborah, is because so many people are going to be set free when we're able to testify of what God is doing, even when the results are not perhaps favorable, quotation marks, according to what we would define as favorable. When we look to scripture, when God is bestowing favor upon people, it's not limited to him blessing us with material things, but it's the favor of being loved by him in every situation. So I'm sorry to preach, but I just sometimes get passionate about this because that's what the gospel is. Yeah. The good news is that Jesus died on the cross to give us hope to experience bad news.
And this is so key, because the hope to experience bad news, the hope to experience even the not so good things. I always thought you don't share now. You share after the testimony. You share when the baby is here. You share when the miracle comes. That's when you share. And God really challenged me. What you're saying is so key, because I experienced what you're talking about. God really challenged me to share with that PCOS wife, with that young woman who just found out her diagnosis, that he is still with you. Emmanuel, God with us. You know, he is still with you even when you get bad news, even when all things feel hopeless and, you know, things are confusing and really dark. God is still with you, and he can see you through, you know, those really tough moments. And so you don't have to wait until your testimony is all nice and bright and shiny. Right? But you can testify of God's goodness. You can share with family, with friends, with your social media platform, how you are working through maintaining hope, keeping your marriage together, staying healthy, communicating, being open with one another. So that's just, you know, where I'm at right now. And I'm also, I think it's so important. Like, I'm getting older. I'm getting wiser, hopefully. And I'm trying to also practice Titus 2, the Titus 2 scripture, when it encourages um, older wives to share with young wives, teach them how to love their husbands. So I'm just trying to practice all the wisdom and the rich nuggets, the wise nuggets that I've received with others, because we don't gatekeep. All right, just like they're saying right now on social media, we don't gatekeep. That means we're not holding on to all the good stuff that we've been blessed with. We want to share that with others.
You think they're ready for the surprise?
All right, y'all have held on. Thank you so much for joining us for the Rich Conversation. I hope it's been enriching to you in your life. And now for the grand finale.
And the battery. Look at the camera battery up here. Look at the top.
Battery's going out, so we got to do it now.
So y'all ready for the surprise? Here we go. 3,
2, 1.
Wow.
Woo! Y'all.
You just got, okay, in 10 seconds, tell them what's coming soon.
We have a series coming up, PCOS, my story, my PCOS story. It is a series filmed by the one and only Rev Kev, my director, my creative director. So stay tuned. We will be dropping it on YouTube and Instagram.
YouTube. We're gonna do YouTube.
On YouTube. So stay tuned. Stay connected with the Rich Couch channel. We're here to have rich conversations and enrich your life. So stay tuned. Stay connected. We'll be dropping more soon.
All right, y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed it. We'll see y'all in a few.
Bye, guys.